Alright, moving on to Chapter 5. Chapter 5.1, before we begin, I forgot to collect your quizzes on Friday for correcting them from the test last week, so if you don't mind pausing the video now to hand me your quizzes, the earlier you get them to me, the faster I can actually fix your grades, because I cannot pass back your quizzes until after I try this. I'm sorry, pass back your tests. Or pretty much tomorrow I'll probably be passing back your tests, so if you don't get me your quizzes and I get everything corrected, then you won't be able, you'll have to actually make up the quizzes. So if you have your quizzes with you, please bring those up to me now before you move. Also, for those of you who did not do the mastery check or did not get 100% on the 5 mastery check questions from the quiz number 2, you can always come up and just tell me which, or show me which one you want to redo. I can pull it up on my computer and you can fix it there right in front of me, which doesn't take a lot of time. Just make sure you know what you're doing, number 1, and number 2, remember that you can do it as many times as you want. Just make sure you know you can only attempt one of each question per day, so you can't try the question, get it wrong, and then come right back and try it again. But other than that, welcome to Chapter 5. We just spent the whole chapter learning how to find the rate of change. Other times we call it a common difference. We learn how to take values from a table and determine the amount of change between the points. So looking back at what we did just real fast in terms of those tables, some of the work we did, one of the things we were asked to do was to look at a point, or look at a table like this, recognize that this is moving up 6 and that this is moving up 2, which meant that we would do 6 divided by 2 and get a rate of change of 3. To look here and recognize that this was a change of 9, this was a change of 3, and so we did 9 divided by 3 to get a rate of change of 3 also, which was our rate of change for the table. The good news for you is if you learned how to do that process last week, that means that you actually put in the time necessary to get that down, then you're already set for this section. Essential question: what is the difference between rate of change and slope? And the answer is nothing. The problem will be set up differently. You're only actually going to need 2 points because there's no need to check whether it's linear. We really don't care. We know it's a line anyway. So you'll only get 2 sets of points, which just means that if you see a table from here on out and you want the rate of change of it, you can pretty much get rid of the 3rd point because all you need are the top 2. But outside of that, rate of change and slope is pretty much a similar process. Slope and rate of change are synonymous. That means synonyms, and I put that there for you just to make sure you understand that they are the same. So when you hear the word slope, it means rate of change. When you hear the word rate of change, it means slope. We're going to learn some more technical and specific ideas relating to slope, so just open your minds for a new perspective, but don't really worry. Whatever you do, don't walk into this lesson thinking that just because you know how to do slope that you don't need to think. You, of course, hopefully have learned that at this point you need to be ready for whatever new stuff pops up, and that would help. The official slope formula you need to write down for yourself is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The key thing you need to understand is that y2 represents second y. This is not a exponent or a superscript. This is called a subscript, and what that subscript means is that this is the second y. That would be your second x. If I had y1, that would mean the first y, and x1 would of course mean your first x. In terms of formulas, if you saw x0 or y0, that means initial x, but we're not worried about that right now. Again, you'll see that at some point. But again, that formula has to be memorized and or known. What I mean by that is you can survive without the formula, but you better make sure you know how to find the rate of change, because in almost every math class you take, you're going to have to know that formula at some point, and it's not like you're going to have to know it in a lesson. They're just going to say what's the rate of change, and you have to kind of know what you're doing there. So looking at how it works, pretty much what you do is, if you're using the slope formula, you do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And what you get there is, this is my first x, that's my first y, that's your first point, this is my second x and my second y. And so y2 means, look at your second point and y, which turns into 31, minus my first y, which is my y and my first point, which is 7. Put that over my second x, which is the x from my second point, minus the x from my first point, which is 4, and then simplify that fraction. So 31 minus 7 makes 24. 10 minus 4 is 6. Overall, your rate of change would be 6. That is the official way that this chapter would teach you how to do it. But of course, as you know, I'm going to tell you that you don't always have to do that one that way. There is a way to do it that is more familiar with or familiar to you, and let's try it in a more familiar way. Here's another way you can do it, and you don't need an official table. You actually don't even really need the XY because I'm pretty sure you know which one is which. You could actually break down the table to just be a quadrant of sections, and you could put your first point, which is 4, 7 in the first one, and 10, 31 in the second one. Notice that that's your X and Y in the first point. This is your X and Y in the second point. And now notice it looks just like we did last time. You do 31 minus 7, which is 24. You do 10 minus 4, which is 6. You do 24 divided by 6, which is, of course, 4. Sorry, I messed up here too. 24 divided by 6 is 4. But anyway, that process there works just the same. You just took the points, instead of putting them into a formula, so to speak, you're actually doing the other way there. On the computer, though, you are going to have to do your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So make sure you understand, again, it's going to be 31 minus 7, which is how you got to 24. So you just actually have to type it, and then you have to actually type in 10 minus 4, which is actually how you got to 6. So just keep that in mind. But again, either one of those methods is okay with me, and I am sure that, again, future teachers will be more concerned with you being able to get the correct slope than worrying about whether you use the formula. Your job, as usual, is to pick a strategy that works for you and to master it. Not just to do it for homework, but to actually master it. The computer, again, is going to make you sure work, so be sure to do the second y and the second x first. I had a lot of people asking me questions on Math Excel questions last chapter, and every time they'd come up, I'd say, I told you in the video to use braces, and then people were like, well, I didn't know that, which just tells me a lot of you just don't pay attention. But I'm telling you right now that it will not let you get it right unless you use the second y and the second x first. Also, again, be sure to use parentheses when you subtract your negatives. So if you were doing 6 minus a negative 3, make sure you type it that way. But overall, there are 3 ways to identify slope. The first is a slope of 2 points. That's what we just looked at. The second is a slope of an equation, which you may not have seen it, but we understand that this stands for y equals mx plus b, which means the slope of that equation would be 8. We'll see that later, I think, Wednesday. And the third is to find the slope of an actual line. And that is our next shift into what we're going to look at. To find the slope of an actual line, you have to memorize the following phrase, which is that m is equal to rise over run. We, of course, I kind of slipped over it and before. M is, of course, the symbol for slope. Rise over run is what you want to remember. In this phrase, it's important to know that your rise can go up, which would make it positive, or down, which makes it negative, but your run can only go to the right and will never be negative. That is one of the biggest mistakes that people make. It will never be a negative number on your run. Your run will always be to the right, so you will either go down and to the right, or you will go up and to the right, but you will never go left on your run. The moment you start going left on your run, you're messing up on your slope, and you need to be careful. Quick examples. As we get ready to wrap this up, I think this might be on the back of your sheet. And because your run goes to the right, you want to make sure you start from the leftmost point, the point that is furthest back. And so this is your furthest back point. So what you want to do is start here and do like you're playing Monopoly or any other board game where you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down. Again, 7 jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jumps. Get me even with that. So my rise is -7 because I went down 7. And then my run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so my slope of this would be -7 over 6. That would be the slope of this graph right there. That's how easy it is. Again, start from one point, go to the other point, but again, start from the one that's mostly on the left, and that is how you do slope. Alright? For this slope here, again, that's your starting point, that's your ending point. Always start from the one on your left. We have to go 1, 2, looks like 3 up, which is up 3, so again, your rise would be 3. Your run would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. And so that means my m is 3 over 9, but of course 3 over 9 can turn into 1/3, which is what the computer is going to want you to do. Again, because I want you to show your work, because I want you to make sure you get the concept, you are going to have to tell me the rise, you are going to have to tell me the run. Again, your run should not be negative. Your rise can be positive or negative, just depending on whether you went up first or down first. But again, that's there for you to kind of bump into some issues and ask about them. Remember, homework is not just there for you to get done. to finish. It's more there for you to bump into some roadblocks, so you have to ask about it, and then I can help you before it counts. There are also some tricky problems to look out for. If you look back at these, this was counting by 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whereas this one here is actually counting by 2. So whenever something weird like this happens, make sure you pay attention. This is not on a line, but it looks to be halfway through, which means that every half step represents 1 here, which means when you're counting here, I would adjust my count to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because again, notice now I'm level, but again, that's half, 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 and another half, which means my rise, because I went down, is -5. My run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so my slope would be -5/7. So again, when you see those kinds of questions, be careful. I'm pretty sure there's one on your test that looks like that, and again, you just got to be ready for it. But if you notice that it's counting by 2s, and if you notice that both of those lines seem to be right around the halfway mark, just use the halves. It makes it a lot easier, and then count with 2 jumps per section. But again, that's something you'd have to practice and adjust on. It has now been told to you that that's going to be an expectation, so it's kind of up to you to get that right. The other tricky ones look like this. They are lines that go either horizontally or vertically. And here's what you can say to yourself. Going from here to here, my rise is 0, because I can't go up to get to the other one. My run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what is it, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so in terms of a slope, your number is 0/6. Here's where people mess up. They're not sure what the answer is, and they just kind of make a guess, but you forget that your calculator will tell you your answer. 0 divided by 6 blatantly tells me that my slope is 0. Notice that 0 popped up in the calculator, therefore my slope is 0. But based off of this, up 0/6 is rise over run 0/6. Over here, your rise is 1, 2, 3, or -3, however you would view it. But notice that my run, I don't go sideways at all, is 0. And if I do 3/0 as a fraction, and I'm not sure what the answer is, please just type it in. 3 divided by 0, notice, gives me a divide by 0 error. That's because you cannot divide by 0. It means that this is what we call undefined. Now again, the difference, and this is the frustrating thing for me, and I'm sure a lot of other teachers, is that when you get 0/6, somebody just puts undefined because they think it's undefined. When they get 3/0, they put 0 because they think it's 0. But you have a calculator that you can literally type in the answer, or type in the question, and it will tell me that it's 0, or it will tell me that it's an error, which means that it's undefined. If you are unsure as to which one is which, use your calculator, type in the fraction, and make sure you don't mess that up, because that's a whole point you're missing just by taking a guess, by flipping a coin and hoping that you're right. Another way to think about 0 versus undefined is this. If I walk on this line and I'm going forward, I can actually walk on it first, but as I walk, notice I don't rise, I don't fall. That is how you know that my slope is 0, because I'm not rising, I'm not falling. My rise is 0, so therefore I'm not rising or falling, and so therefore the slope is 0. The trick on this one is, if I were to stand on this line, am I really standing on that line? Because I don't think you can actually stand on a wall, which is why it's undefined, because undefined in my thinking would be that this is impossible. I cannot stand on this because it's impossible to do. Another way to think about it, just to make sure you get it, if I sign my name on this line, notice that it doesn't rise or fall. How do you sign your name on a vertical line? I can even sign my name on a line like this. I can sign my name on a line like this, but a line that goes straight up and down I cannot do, which again makes it undefined. A vertical line has no slope whatsoever, not a 0 slope. It is an undefined slope. Final thought here is just to make sure you practice these 2 skills and do your best to finish the homework today. This week is packed with information, and keeping up is going to allow you to actually study. I hope that you're starting to understand the statement about the difference between doing homework and studying. If not, you might want to figure it out, because some of you swear that you're getting 100% on homework and don't know why you're getting 50s and lower on tests. The other will put you in a place where math will be, it won't be easy, but if you learn how to actually study the material, then actually math won't be that much of a challenge for you anymore. Yes, homework is important because you have to get the practice, but you have to start understanding that your studying is really the most important part of your math experience. So other than that, the work is waiting for you, so good luck.